morning, everyone, and it's Bronie here again for another day in Bronie's world, this glorious winter's day here in Australia. Well, it is where I am. Birds are chirping and everything. Well, at Bronie's desk today, we have our beautiful friend, Pharmacist Ben. And today, now, you may remember 2 weeks ago when he was on, he said we really should talk about connective tissues in depth a bit more. So I have asked him to do that. Plus, we're going to touch on the subject of vitamin A in their BTT for pregnant women, because there's a few rumors going around that it shouldn't be. But anyway, we will just get into the connective tissue bit first, and we've got that plus another question that we want. So with no further ado, my dear Ben, I'm handing it over to you. Oh, and can I ask you a little favor?
Yeah.
To try and stay a little bit higher. See how I've got a bit of room between my mouth and the Yes, because last fortnight we could all see your beautiful eyes.
How's that?
We couldn't always see your mouth moving.
How's that?
That's top notch. Okay. Now you can talk.
All right, I had to lower my camera a little bit. So let's see what you were. Well, let's talk about vitamin A real quick, okay? Because that's a real quick one. You can overdose on vitamin A. It's a fatty vitamin, and it's stored in the liver. That being said, if you stop, it's not like you'll kill yourself with it. Your body will just eventually, when you stop taking it, your body will clean it, will use what it has, and then you'll need to take vitamin A again. It's not toxic in the sense that you'll do permanent damage. You just may get yellow jaundice, and you put some stress on the liver, which is not a good thing. So you got to be careful. Your question about teratogenicity, which is birth defects associated with vitamin A, that can happen if you take really, really, really high concentrations of vitamin A, high doses of vitamin A. If you're taking BTT, that's not going to be high enough to cause birth defects or teratogens. So I don't know why anybody's saying that. Even a multivitamin is not going to make that much of a difference. If you took a ridiculous amount of vitamin A, 50,000, 100,000 international units, that might happen. 5, 10, 15,000 international units a day, you're not going to have birth defects. And the birth defects happen if you are going to swallow a whole bottle of vitamin A or take ridiculous amounts. It'll happen basically in the first trimester. That's when the biggest problem is in the first trimester. But you don't want to really take vitamin A. You don't want to really make an assessment on vitamin A based on what people tell you, what studies say, because they're always giving people just vitamin A. They're not giving people all of the nutrients. When they test these things, they test them just on vitamin A. So it's not really an accurate assessment of what vitamin A does when it's in a multivitamin or when it's in a blend, especially with vitamin D and vitamin E, and maybe even vitamin K. The fat-soluble vitamins all work together. So do you want to take, you don't want to take a ridiculous amount, but you need vitamin A. It's an essential nutrient. Your fetus needs vitamin A. Vitamin A is an essential nutrient for pregnancy, for the developing fetus, for the baby. So you need vitamin A. So if you take 10,000 IU of vitamin A, take more than 10,000 IU vitamin A a day, it might have a problem. That's a potential for a problem. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed going to have a problem. As you take more, you run into more problems. But 10,000 IU, which is a lot, that shouldn't be a problem. Beyond Tangy Tangerine, I'm looking here at what Beyond Tangy Tangerine has, and I think that has about 10,000 IU per 2 scoops. So if you did Beyond Tangy Tangerine as directed during the day, that's not going to be too much.
Yeah, so Gracie was just asking, so how much is too much vitamin A?
There's no real way to know. Nobody really knows.
No.
But 10,000
is not. The BTT is perfectly fine.
BTT is perfectly fine. And remember, your baby, the fetus, needs vitamin A too. And you need vitamin A.
Exactly.
It's a vitamin. It's an essential nutrient. So everybody needs vitamin A. So you don't want to just stop taking vitamin A. It's just a question of how much you take. And there's no real way to know. There's no definitive number. And that's kind of the case with all nutritional advice. There's no definitive numbers here. You kind of have to test things out yourself. 10,000 IU, though, is safe. It's never been shown that 10,000 IU is a problem for pregnancy or for teratogenicity.
Yeah, and that's the question that we're often asked is, well, doctors and midwives and naturopaths and everyone's getting on the bandwagon now, trying to stop people taking their BTT when they're pregnant, and I think
Well,
that's
that's too
silly.
bad, but you got to do what you. I don't try to convince anybody what to do. You just got to do your own research, but it doesn't. It's too bad because your baby needs nutrients as much. Your fetus, the baby in your womb, needs nutrients as much as you do. And remember, when you have a baby, your baby's getting your nutrients first. You get them second. So when you're pregnant, you're going to run into have a greater risk of nutritional deficiencies than when you're not, because the baby is nature's priority, not you. So taking supplements is extra important for pregnant women, and eating correctly is extra important for pregnant women. It's important for everybody, of course, but extra important for pregnant women.
So,
Vitamin A, I don't know. I actually don't know the number. No, I don't think anybody knows the number, but 10,000 IU shouldn't be an issue.
so yes, so 2 to 4 scoops of our BTT a day over
Two
the day,
scoops a
not at
day.
once,
Yeah,
is
I
fine.
think
But
2 scoops.
8 to 10 would be way too much, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just be reasonable about it. Or,
I
you
don't
know,
even know anyone who takes 8 to 10 scoops of our BTT a day.
no, I don't know either. You know what the best food source for vitamin A is, by the way?
Big pardon?
Do you know what the best food source
Liver.
for vitamin A?
Liver.
What? Yeah,
Liver.
liver. Very good. That's very good.
That was
That's great.
Grant.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes, liver is probably nature's best source of vitamin A. Organ meats in general, but vitamin A is stored in the liver. So, so that's where if you eat a cow's liver, you're going to get their storage form of vitamin A. But I would caution people not to marginalize the importance of vitamin A for babies, for fetuses, for the developing fetus. So yes, it's interesting because vitamin A helps cells mature. And how a cell matures, they call that differentiation. That's a technical term, but we'll just say mature. That plays a really important role in what's called embryogenesis. Embryogenesis is one of the most fascinating processes in all of biology. And when you think about it, you'll see why. Like you have a Bronie, you've had babies, right? So you have a baby in the womb.
4 of them.
Just the way, think about how a finger forms. The way a finger forms, if you zoom in with your imagination, you'll see that the cells have to do a certain thing at the top. They have to stop growing at the top so a finger can form. And that's just a finger, let alone all the other parts of the body. They have to grow, and then they have to stop growing, and then they have to grow again. And the maturation process of cells is super, super tightly choreographed and regulated so fingers can form correctly. Right? Not to mention
Yes.
all the other incredible parts of the body. Think about how much subtlety there is in the body and how an embryo forms, right? Like it just goes from 2 cells, and all of a sudden you get fingers, and you get toes, and you get nose, and you get nails, and you get all the parts in the body, and it's really miraculous how that happens. And all of that is happening by the intelligent and strategic maturation of cells. That's called differentiation. The cells are taking on a different shape. And I'm using the finger as an example, but it happens with all the parts of the body. And I'm looking at you, Bronie, because I can't see anybody else. But does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So
It's got to know when to stop.
it's got to know when to stop. Exactly.
Like if
it
you,
didn't
like,
stop, it would
you
just.
know, if
Yes,
your nose didn't stop,
exactly.
we'd have a Pinocchio nose, wouldn't we?
Exactly. It has to know when to stop, right? And then it has to know when to start again. It has to know when to stop and when to start again. All that is regulated in large part by vitamin A. That's one of vitamin A's most important roles in the body, is to control that process. That's why it's so important for the skin, because the skin is constantly growing and constantly dividing. So vitamin A plays a very important role in what's called differentiation, or we'll say maturation of cells. And this is why you have to be careful about vitamin A when you're pregnant, because if you take too much, it's going to throw off that process. If there's too much vitamin A in the system, it'll throw off the maturation of the differentiation process, and that's where birth defects come from. That's why too much can cause birth defects. So, but just the right amount is important for differentiation. So it's not like I'm not going to take any vitamin A, but you don't want to take too much. So where that cutoff point is, nobody knows. But 10,000 IU, it shouldn't be a problem for anybody.
Yeah, so a BTT is the perfect
BTT is
mix.
not going to be a problem. No, BTT is not going to be a problem for you.
No, that's right, because
Yeah,
it's been
and in
developed to
fairness
be
to
the
doc,
perfect mix.
what's that?
It's been developed to be the
Yeah,
perfect.
it's been developed. And in fairness to physicians, they're erring on the side of caution,
Yeah,
but they're also erring on the side of deficiency. Because yeah, it's good to err on the side of caution, but you still need vitamin A. You still
yeah.
need these nutrients. Does that all that make
So
sense?
in other words, if you're taking BTT, you're getting all the nutrients and that you need. So you
Yeah.
don't need to go then and turn around and take vitamin A on its own.
Yes, exactly. You don't need to take
That's where
vitamin
the
A.
danger would come in, is
That's right.
taking, then
You can
turning
get
around
yours
and
from the
then,
B.
oh, but the doctor's giving me some vitamin A to take, so don't take
You
the
can get it from the
BTT.
BTT. That's
That's
correct. Yes, that's
silly.
correct.
You're missing all the other
You're missing 90 other nutrients. Exactly. Exactly.
89. Anyway,
89. Right.
but so hopefully that helps a lot of people, because like I get asked that question way more
About
than,
vitamin A,
yeah,
you know,
especially from pregnant women. And I've got a few of those around me at the moment.
yeah, that's a good
Not
thing.
me. I'm not.
No, I know, but that's a good thing. Get some more humans on the planet here, at least in Australia anyway. So,
Yeah.
but you do need vitamin A for pregnancy for to grow a baby. But just got to be careful on the exactly the amount. And I would say 10,000 IU is not going to be a problem.
Right. And that leads beautifully into connective tissues, because babies need connective tissue. So getting
Well,
into,
yeah, the connective tissue is just, it's amazing. So let's talk about the connective tissue. First of all, the body is made out of stuff. Okay? I call stuff tissue,
yeah.
but it's the same thing. Okay? There's four kinds of stuff, four kinds of tissue that the body's made up of. There's a core to the body, then the body is coated, and then it's electrified. The core of the body is made up of two types of stuff. The coating is one type, a third type of stuff, and then the electricity is a fourth type of stuff. Of course, the electricity we all know is nervous tissue, nervous stuff, nerve tissue. That's the nerves. That is a unique type of tissue, unique type of stuff. Then there's the stuff that coats us, our skin largely, but also our eyes and our glands, and that's called epithelial tissue. Have you heard that term, epithelial tissue? That's the coating. Okay, so you got the electricity, you got the coating. The core of the body, which makes up like probably 80, maybe 80 to 90% of the body, the bulk of the body, I call it the flesh robot, because it still looks like a body without the skin and without the nerves. It still looks like a body. Have you ever seen the bodies exhibit? Here in the United States, we have something called the bodies exhibit, where you get to see what bodies look like without the skin. And they
Yeah.
still look like a body. You can tell it's a body. You can tell it's a human. You can tell it's not a monkey. You can tell it's a human, not a dog or a cat or a
Right.
goat. You can see it's a human, right? It has a structure of everything in a human. It just doesn't have the characteristics. And that's kind of interesting, because you can't tell whether it's a black human or a white human or an Indian human or a Maori human or a Japanese human. Underneath, we're all the same. Underneath, we are our flesh robot. We're not black. We're not white. We're not yellow. We're not red. We're just people. We're just humans. And there's an interesting lesson there. Okay, it's kind of silly how we make these distinctions based on the epithelial tissue, based on the covering, which is like 5% of our bodies. The bulk of us is all the same.
Well, that's like saying a book's not a book because it hasn't got the same cover as that book.
The cover, this is the cover. It's still the book. It doesn't matter what the cover is. It's still a book. The bulk of the body is 80 to 90%. The bulk of the body, I call it the flesh robot, is the very essence of health and aging. And this bulk of the body is a combination of what we call colloquially steak. When you eat steak, you're eating the bulk of the body of a cow.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were a cannibal and you wanted to eat a human, you would eat the bulk of the body, the flesh robot. And if you cut the flesh robot crosswise, imagine the flesh robot. It looks like me without my skin and my electricity. Yeah. If you cut the flesh robot crosswise, you'll see muscle and gristle. That's what steak is, right? It has the pink stuff and it has the white stuff. The pink stuff is the muscle. And when we eat a steak, we're largely eating muscle. And that's the pink stuff. But the white stuff is the most important part of the body. And I'll tell you why here in a second. That's the connective tissue. And so if you looked at the body, the flesh robot inside, underneath the epithelia and aside from the nerve tissue, you would see muscle, and then the connective tissue wraps around the muscle. The connective tissue does much more than connect. We all, obviously you think about the connective tissue, you think connection, but the connective tissue does much more. The connective tissue is the part of the body that feeds all the other parts of the body. All the food for the muscle, the nerve, and the epithelia comes from the connective tissue. All of the oxygen comes from the connective tissue. All of the electricity comes from the connective, not all of it, but most of the electricity comes from the connective tissue. And the detoxification is the connective tissue. The connective tissue is responsible for nurturing all the other parts of the body. The connective tissue functions like a womb for the cells of the body. And just like a baby in the womb is fed from the womb, it's oxygenated from the womb, it's electrified from the womb, it's detoxified from the womb, the connective tissue does the same thing for all the other parts of the body. Now, when I say all the other parts of the body, I'm talking the cells of the body. That's where all the livingness comes from. So all of the cells and all the parts of the body are embedded in the connective tissue, like fruit in a pineapple. Like pineapple in a fruit mold or Jello mold. You know what I'm talking about? You have Jello molds. So you have pineapples and honeydew and all that. That's how all the cells of the body are. They're all embedded in the connective tissue, and all the organs of the body are embedded in the connective tissue, like pineapple in a Jello mold. And interestingly, what is Jello? Connective tissue from a cow.
Yeah.
The Jello is connective tissue. It's the same thing. That if you look at a Jello mold, you'll see kind of a jello-y, gooey, bouncy quality, and all of the stuff sits in that jello, gooey, bouncy quality. That's your connective tissue. Your connective tissue is made up of jelly, gooey, bouncy stuff. And because the body's brilliant and God is brilliant and nature is brilliant, that jelly, gooey, bouncy stuff is strengthened by steel, except it's not steel, it's protein fibers. So the connective tissue is this combination of jelly, gooey, mushy, bouncy stuff, slimy stuff, that's solidified by protein wires or ropes or steel bars, however you want to call it. Those ropes or steel bars or wires that strengthen the goo is your collagen. The collagen is the stuff that strengthens the goo. And between the collagen, and there's a few others, elastin and reticulin, these are other proteins like collagen, but it's mostly collagen. Between the collagen and the goo, you have your connective tissue. And this collagen and goo does so many things for the body that keep us young and vital and healthy. And as we age, the most dramatic component of the aging process or aspect of the aging process is deterioration of the connective tissue. The deterioration of the connective tissue is what accounts for almost all, if not all, almost all of the misery that's associated with the aging process. And we spend billions, if not trillions of dollars around the world on creams and lotions and surgical procedures and nutritional supplements and health strategies and protocols dedicated to building the connective tissue. That's what Botox is. That's what vitamin C and skincare and skin peels and laser is. That's what arthritis medicine is. That's what the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack is. And why this is important is because it tells you that if you build the connective tissue, you're going to build everything in the body, and you're going to slow down the aging or even reverse the aging process, because all the things that we hate about aging are connective tissue driven. So building the connective tissue is critical for slowing down and even reversing aging. Definitely slowing it down, but possibly even reversing it. So when we talk about connective tissue, it's important to recognize that while we think, most of us anyway, when we think about connective tissue, we think about arthritis. That's what most people think about when they think about connective tissue. Everything is the connective tissue because the connective tissue is what feeds and oxygenates and electrifies and detoxifies all the cells like a womb. In fact, in Latin, the word womb is matrix. And the connective tissue is called the connective tissue matrix. You might as well call it the connective tissue womb because it's the womb for all of the cells of the body. It does all of the work for all the cells in the body. The most dramatic example of the connective tissue, believe it or not, is the blood. Do you know the blood is connective tissue? The blood is liquid connective tissue. Fat is connective tissue. And of course, all the gooey, the stuff we just talked about, the gooey stuff and the collagen is also connective tissue. So if you want to do one thing to reverse the aging process, or slow down at least the aging process, it's build the connective tissue. One of the most dramatic aspects of the connective tissue, or roles, we'll say, of the connective tissue, and this is so cool, is there's a reaction, a chemical reaction that happens between connective tissue and water. And connective tissue has an ability to turn ordinary water into magic water, or as they call it, structured water. I call it magic water because it has a lot of qualities that are like magic. Structured water, the reason I call structured water magic is because when you think of water, you think of a bunch of little water molecules sloshing around. Yeah. And you ever hear, Bronie, that your body is 60 to 70% water? Yes. Have you ever heard that? Yeah. Some people, maybe 75% water.
It's more than that, isn't it?
It's around somewhere in there, 70%, we'll say. Did you ever wonder, if I'm 70% water, how come I'm not sloshing around like a puddle every time I walk around? Right? If I'm 70% water, I should be like a puddle, right? How could that even be? How could 70% water walk around? If you're 70% water, that means if I squeeze my arm, water should come out, right? Well, of course, that doesn't happen, and you're not a puddle sloshing around. So how could you be 70% water? Well, it's because that 70% water is not just water. That 70% water is magic water. It's structured water. It's coherent water, which means it works like a unit. You are a solid water. Now, that's why I call it magic. Can you imagine solid water? You know, Jesus walked on water. That's magic. How did he walk on water? Because the water was solid. Well, guess what? You're solid water. You're 70% water, but it's not just water. It's not like blub, 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 like a cup of water sloshing around. It's a solid form of water. So while we call it water, it has a completely different quality. That solidity makes that water incredibly electrical. Incredibly electrical. So electrical that it can conduct energy from the top of your head to the bottom of your foot instantly or almost instantly. It can conduct energy super, super, super efficiently. Not only can it conduct energy super efficiently, it can store energy super efficiently. In fact, it not only stores energy super efficiently like a battery, but it can store energy like a computer. So it can actually remember things and learn things. The water in our body remembers and it learns. The water in our body is solid. The water in our body is like a battery. This is why I call it magic water. And this magic water that is intelligent and responsive and stores energy and acts like a battery, and it has a solidity that allows it to conduct to transmit information at great distances really quick. It's solidified largely, or at least partially, by its reaction with the connective tissue. So as we age and our connective tissue breaks down, so does our water structure. Our water structure, and we become more blobby. In fact, I call it blobification. and that's what happens as we get older. We blobify. And this is what causes not only the pain and the discomfort and the loss of mobility and the illness, but the psychological misery when you look in the mirror and you're not that young, beautiful person anymore because you've blobified, because the body has lost its structure. And that loss of structure is the result of deterioration of the connective tissue, which is now no longer able to structure the water. So not only do you not have you've lost a battery, you've lost a computer, but you've also lost the shape. So building the connective tissue for all these reasons is the very essence of anti-aging. And most of the things that we do as a culture, from eating mostly foods, from eating the fried foods to eating the sugar and the cigarette smoking and the alcohol and the drugs and the lack of exercise, and the sedentary lifestyle, all of these have their negative impact on the body by their acceleration of the deterioration of connective tissue. They speed up the breakdown of connective tissue. So all the things we do as a culture, and I'm including Australia, New Zealand in here, because it's all of us in the world, the lousy food, the processed food, the seed oils, the lack of nutrition, the cigarette smoke and the drugs and the alcohol and the lack of movement and exercise, all of those exert their negative impact on the body largely by their acceleration of the connective tissue breakdown. On the other hand, anything that you could do to build the connective tissue, to strengthen the connective tissue, to keep the connective tissue from breaking down is going to have the opposite effect. If breaking down the connective tissue ages you, building up the connective tissue youthifies you. And that's why I say building the connective tissue is the very essence of anti-aging. And there's lots of ways to do it. First of all, don't smoke, don't drink, don't eat the seed oils and the crappy foods and the sugar, all of which exert their negative effects on the body largely by speeding up connective tissue breakdown. That's the one thing. And then build the connective tissue. And there's lots of ways to build the connective tissue. Exercise is one of the most important ways to build the connective tissue. And while it will walk around the block, that'll get you some exercise. The real best way to exercise is high intensity interval exercises. That's where you go really fast and then you stop. And then you go really fast and then you stop. And you'll notice if you get on a treadmill, if anybody out there is on the treadmill, you'll notice that when you get on the treadmill, if instead of running on the treadmill, you walk and then you run for a minute and then you stop and you walk again, and then you run for a minute and then you stop and walk again, and then you run for a minute like that, you go high intensity and stop. Not only is it much easier, it's not as strenuous, it's not as stressful because you have the body has a break every minute, but it's also more effective. And you get better results with interval training. So high intensity interval training is the ideal way to exercise. Weightlifting, super important for older people. And I'm counting me as older people. Anybody over 50, certainly in your 60s and 70s, even in your 80s. Weightlifting is super important. Now, if you haven't lifted weights before, and all of a sudden you're 50 or 60 or 70 and you decide you want to lift weights, get a trainer, because you could do damage if you don't know what you're doing. So don't try to go get dumbbells and do stuff at home. Get somebody to kind of guide you through the process. Then you don't have to keep a trainer, but just get a trainer to guide you through the process, because how you do your exercise, the form, the process of exercise, not only is going to have a very important impact on how effective your exercise will be, it can also cause problems if you don't do it correctly. So exercise is really important for building connective tissue. And then, of course, laying off the problem foods, the stuff that destroys connective tissue. But then there's also nutrition. Now, we have a product called the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack, which everybody talks about for, obviously, bone and joints. But what are bone and joints? They're connective tissue.
Tissues.
So when you take your Healthy Bone and Joint Pack, you don't just help your bone and joints. You help your gums. You help your skin. You help the matrix inside the body where all the organs are sitting in. And by the way, one of the ways you can tell your connective tissue is breaking down is by ruptures, like a ruptured disc, or hernias, like a inguinal hernia, or I'm not sure what other kinds of hernias there are, or an abdominal hernia. You can have hernias where parts of a hernia is when the inside of the body pushes through the connective tissue. Hernias are a sign of weakened connective tissue. Ruptures are a sign of weakened connective tissue. Women can get something called prolapses, a prolapsed bladder. Have you heard of a prolapsed bladder
Yeah.
or a prolapsed uterus? A
Yes.
prolapse is when your uterus or your bladder, whatever organ it is, drops. Why does it drop? Because instead of being embedded in the connective tissue like honeydew in a jello mold, the jello deteriorates, your honeydew drops. A prolapse is your honeydew dropping, or your pineapple, or whatever it is, through the connective tissue. So building the connective tissue, strengthening the connective tissues with your healthy bone and joint pack will help you with ruptures, with hernias, with prolapses, with gum disease, with skin health, with bone health, and it will help you with the health of all of the cells of the body, which are embedded in the connective tissue, which feeds them and oxygenates them and electrolyzes them and detoxifies them. So our healthy bone and joint pack has to be regarded as a healthy aging pack, or a healthy anti-aging pack, if you will. Much more than a healthy bone and joint pack, it helps all the connective tissue. And that's why I said I want to talk about the connective tissues, because it's the most important part of the body, is the connective tissue, and it's the part of the body whose breakdown causes us the most distress. Another great thing for building connective tissue is chicken soup. When you drink chicken soup or eat chicken soup, and I'm not talking about canned or Campbell's chicken soup, I'm talking about with the chicken and the water, and you let the water simmer and boil, and all the cartilage dissolves. The cartilage is that white stuff on the bones. All that dissolves in the water. You're drinking connective tissue. You're ingesting liquid connective tissue, and that's going to help your connective tissue. Likewise, collagen peptides, and collagen for that matter. When you eat collagen and collagen peptides, you're eating connective tissue. When you eat chicken soup, you're eating connective tissue. When you eat connective tissue, all the components that make up the connective tissue get used by your body to make up your connective tissue. So chicken soup, bone broth, anywhere, collagen peptides, collagen, hydrolyzed collagen, anywhere you can get collagen or connective tissue components is going to help you with your connective tissue. If you want a handy dandy way to get connective tissue components, this is kind of cool. The next time you have shrimp, save the shells. And you can take the shells and you can boil the shells down, and the substances in the shells will help you make your connective tissue. Another thing about connective tissue is you can, with all the raw materials for making connective tissue, the collagen peptides, I'm going to tell you a couple more here in a minute, glucosamine, high hyaluronic acid, bone soup, all the things in the healthy bone and joint pack. There's one substance that if you don't get, you're not going to make connective tissue, no matter how much of the other stuff you have. It's the key that turns on the connective tissue building engine. Nothing else. You have all the gasoline you want, all the collagen peptides, all of the collagen, all the magnesium, all the calcium, all the protein, everything else that goes to make connective tissue. You can have all that, but without this one nutrient, you can't make it, which is the key that turns on the engine. You can't make connective tissue. And this is a nutrient that almost all of us are undernutriated in. Even if we're getting small amounts of it, we're not getting anywhere near enough. Which means almost all of us are not getting the one nutrient that's necessary, enough of the one nutrient that's necessary for building connective tissue. And in my opinion, this is one of the most important causes of our collective health issues and our accelerated aging issues, be they heart disease, blood vessel disease, which, by the way, I don't know if you saw President Trump, his latest thing, blood vessel disease, classic, connective tissue disease, wrinkles, heart disease, ruptures, hernias, osteoporosis, all of these are connective tissue driven. And so this, in my opinion, deficiencies in this one nutrient that turns on the key for making collagen, for making connective tissue, for heart health and blood vessel health and ruptures and hernias and skin and all that stuff, is deficient in most, we're not getting enough of. You know what that nutrient is?
Is it going to be niacin?
Vitamin D
No.
or vitamin A?
No. It's interesting that you're not guessing. I'll tell you why it's interesting is because this is a nutrient that we take for granted because we always hear about it. In fact, if you had to go
Vitamin
to
C.
exactly, it's vitamin C. It's vitamin C. Without vitamin C, you can't make connective tissue. And in fact, the disease that's caused by vitamin C deficiency is called scurvy.
That's
And
correct.
scurvy is a disease where your teeth fall out of your mouth and your blood vessels hemorrhage and you get these horrible wounds that don't heal on your skin and your bones turn to mush and dissolve because you can't make connective tissue. And we don't have scurvy anymore, luckily, but what we do have is subclinical scurvy. We don't have full-blown scurvy where you're going to die or go to the hospital, but we have subclinical scurvy. What does subclinical mean? It means it's not bad enough to kill you. It's not bad enough to put you in the hospital, but it's bad enough to cause misery, to cause lack of movement, to cause pain, to cause accelerated aging, to cause ruptures, to cause osteoporosis. And so I believe that all of the things that we hate about aging are really subclinical scurvy, which means vitamin C, while we all take it for granted, and we always hear about it, if you went on the street and asked like a stranger on the street to name one vitamin or one nutrient, they probably would say vitamin C because it's like the poster child for nutrition. Everybody knows about it. But what they don't know is vitamin C is the anti-aging vitamin because of its ability to support the construction, the synthesis of the connective tissue, which now hopefully I've been talking for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, you realize how important the connective tissue is. And in fact, it's so interesting because when we think of connective tissue, and especially after I just talked about connective tissue, we don't realize that there's places in the body where the connective tissue is microscopic. You can't see it. And I did a talk a couple days ago for Fred, or a couple weeks ago for Fred, Fred Van Loo, and we talked about the connective tissue, and I talked about everything's connected, just like I did here, connective tissue driven, blah, 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 all the anti-aging, and you need the connective tissue. At the end, we took questions, and somebody asked about their glaucoma. And I had to tell them that their glaucoma, like everything else that's chronic and degenerative in the body, involves deterioration, degeneration of the connective tissue. And you say, how can that be? Well, there's lots of ways. Number one, the connective tissue is feeding all of the cells of the body, including the eye cells, including the cells that control fluid pressure. So when your connective tissue deteriorates, it deteriorates in your eyes. Your eyeballs are made of connective tissue. Your lens on your eye is largely connective tissue. Not the lens, the macula. The lens is a little different, but the macula is largely connective tissue. So you have these deteriorations in the body of the connective tissue that we don't think about. We don't realize that there's connective tissue in the eyes and the eyeballs, and when your connective tissue deteriorates, you're going to be more prone towards floaters of the eye. You know what floaters are? People see.
Yeah.
That's connective tissue deterioration. But we'll go to the eye doctor. And what does the eye doctor do when you have floaters? Nothing, because there's nothing he can do. There's nothing they can do because it's not an eye problem. It's a tissue problem. We have created a culture where we focus on all the organs and the structures, but not what they're made of. Eyes are made of the connective tissue. The heart sits on a framework of connective tissue. The blood vessels are strengthened by the connective tissue. The intestine is held intact by the connective tissue. The skin is held in place by the connective tissue. The connective tissue is what holds all of the vertebrae in your spine. The connective tissue is responsible for the integrity of the bladder. And when the connective tissue in the bladder breaks down, you're going to get urinary tract infections, interstitial cystitis. Have you heard of this? Interstitial cystitis?
I haven't heard it called that. But.
Interstitial cystitis, you know what I'm talking about, the bladder infection, urinary tract infection, right? Can you imagine having a urinary, and it's miserable, right? Can you imagine having a urinary tract infection that never goes away? Can you imagine a bladder infection that never goes away or happens like every couple of months? That's called interstitial cystitis. And there's people who suffer from this condition, interstitial cystitis. And there's not one doctor in 100 that will recognize that interstitial cystitis is partially caused by deterioration of connective tissue. Glaucoma, deterioration of connective tissue. The deterioration of connective tissue affects parts of the body that you would never think about as deterioration of the connective tissue. So building the connective tissue will help your eyes. It'll help your bladder. It'll help your vertebrae. It'll help parts of the body that you wouldn't even recognize it's going to help. If you have arrhythmias, your heart sits on a skeleton of connective tissue. It sits on a framework of connective tissue. Once the connective tissue deteriorates, it's much more difficult for the heart to conduct electrical energy, which means you're going to be more prone towards arrhythmias. And nobody's going to think it's connective tissue driven. So building the connective tissue supports everything, which is why I consider the connective tissue to be the most important part of the body. Last thing I want to say is, I said the connective tissue is made up of these fibers, these proteins, and then goo, right? I call fibers and goo. That's the connective tissue, right? Just like eating collagen and eating the fibers will build your collagen in your connective tissue, eating the goo will help your goo. You understand what I'm saying? You have two components to connective tissue. You got the fibers. Eating the fibers will help build your fibers. Eating the goo will help your goo. So eating goo is very important. I'm being a little facetious here, just for imagery's sake.
Jelly?
Eating goo. Yes, not sugary jelly, but jelly-like substances. Yes. In fact, if you make chicken soup and you put the chicken in water, you'll notice that after the water simmers and the chicken cooks down, the water has a certain solidity to it, right? Yeah. What is that solidity?
It's the jelly part.
It's the goo. It's the goo. And when you drink the goo, you'll be helping your goo. So drinking goo, and you don't have to drink chicken soup. Chicken soup is a great way because you're drinking goo, but also aloe vera. Aloe vera exerts its healing and medicinal benefits because of its goo. It contains lots of goo. And one of my favorite forms of goo is fucoidan. Fucoidan is goo. That's why Fucoid Z has so many benefits. You notice how when I talk about Fucoid Z, I'm talking about Fucoid Z for the blood and for the skin and for the immune system and for the connective tissue. We're talking about for all these systems of the body because it's helping you. It's goo. It's helping you build your goo. And by the way, goo, we're calling goo. Remember, the blood is connective tissue. It's liquid connective tissue. And because dirty blood is behind all diseases, figuring out a way to make the blood more fluid is very important for reversing disease or for slowing down the aging process. Goo makes the blood more fluid. The blood contains goo. And the goo in the blood is one of the ways the blood maintains its fluidity. And in fact, if you have to have surgery, one of the things that happens when you have surgery, they cut into you, one of the first things that happens when they cut into you is your blood will clot. Yeah. Why is that? Is because when you're having surgery to your body has been around for a couple million years or so. To the body, it doesn't know it's in the operating room in the year 2025. It thinks it's back on the African savannah and a lion just bit it. So one of the mechanisms the body has to keep us from bleeding all over the African savannah is clotting. So every time you're cut, you clot. In fact, if you don't clot, you can die, and there are people who have a disease where they can't clot. Hemophiliacs have a disease where they can't clot, and that could be very serious. So clotting is a very, very important function, and that's why dirty blood is so easy to have dirty blood, because as soon as stuff gets into the blood clots. And that's what dirty blood is. Clotting is a protective mechanism. So in surgery, what do they give you after you come out of surgery? They give you goo. They'll actually inject goo into your blood to keep it from clotting. What do they call that goo? Heparin. Have you heard of heparin? Yeah. Heparin is goo. Heparin is a type of goo. But you don't need heparin. You could use fucoidan. Fucoidan is also goo. It's not exactly like heparin. Heparin's probably a lot stronger. It's the body's own chemical, but nonetheless, fucoidan and gooey substances, especially slimy substances, which are goo, all will have a blood thinning effect and will improve blood circulation, meaning improving oxygen delivery, nutrient delivery, and electrification and detoxification. Anywhere where you can ingest goo is going to be in your benefit in nature, not artificial goo, but mushroom goo, fish goo, egg goo, algae and seaweed goo. All of these gooey substances, aloe vera. Did you ever break open an aloe vera?
Yeah.
Like aloe vera leaf? It's like gooey inside, right? I call it goo, but it's sort of what's the texture in there?
Sweet. Yeah.
It's kind of wet and gooey. In nature, the reason something's gooey is because it contains a framework of molecules that magnetically attract water. And what we call goo is really this framework of molecules with water stuck in there. And that gives it a gooey, snotty quality. Some people say slimy or snotty. I say goo, but slimy or snotty. Snot, in fact, is the same thing. What we call snot out of your nose is the mucus, if you will. It's the same stuff. It's goo. And this goo, nature will use this goo to trap water for plants that live in the desert. So plants that live in the desert will utilize this goo to trap water. Algae do the same thing. They'll utilize the goo to trap water. Goo is used to trap water, and the combination of collagen and goo is how water stays structured and coherent in the body. And so ingesting goo becomes very important for building connective tissue. And anywhere you could ingest goo, you want to ingest goo. And anywhere you can ingest collagen, you want to ingest collagen and collagen peptides and fibers. And anywhere you can ingest vitamin C, you want to ingest vitamin C. And these are all the components for building the connective tissue, which does, as you can see from the last 25 minutes I've been talking, much more than connect. And oh, by the way, where do we get glue from? Do you know where we get glue from? Glue for gluing paper together? Connective tissue.
Yeah.
Collagen. The word collagen means, in Greek, glue. And so connective tissue connects, but it does way more than that.
Yeah, so because you mentioned vitamin C, Yvonne wants to know how much vitamin C do we
That's usually the question. Look, it's like vitamin A. There's no way to know. I say with vitamin C, take more rather than less, because if you take more, your body will excrete what you don't use. It's better to have more than less. Vitamin A is fat soluble. It's fatty, so it's stored. Vitamin C is not really stored. It gets flushed out. So every time you go to the bathroom, you lose vitamin C. So every time you urinate, get some vitamin C to replace what you lost. And vitamin C also is used by the body to detoxify things. It's a detoxifying vitamin. So, for example, every time you smoke a cigarette, you lose a certain amount of vitamin C, maybe 10, 20 milligrams of vitamin C for every cigarette you smoke. Every time you eat sugar, you lose a certain amount of vitamin C. And by the way, there's a very important relationship between sugar and vitamin C, and sugar will cost you vitamin C. So the things we do in life, not only are we not getting enough vitamin C intake, we're not intaking enough vitamin C because we don't really appreciate it, but we're doing a lot of things that deplete our vitamin C. So for all of those reasons, I say take more rather than less. You could certainly take 10,000 milligrams a day. There are people who will inject 50,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C. Animals, only human beings, and I think the fruit bat and a couple of forms of gorilla and guinea pig don't make vitamin C. But squirrels make vitamin C, horses make vitamin C, their own vitamin C, dogs, cats, birds, all animals make their own vitamin C. But what's really interesting is when an animal is under stress, it will make more vitamin C because vitamin C helps the body handle stress. So between our lack of intake, our intake of things that deplete our body of vitamin C, and the extraordinary amount of stress human beings are under, many, if not most, if not all of us are deficient in vitamin C unless we're supplementing with it. And given its relevance and importance for building the connective tissue, as you can see, in my opinion, it's way better to take more than less. And as I said, there are people who inject 50 grams right in their blood. We can certainly take 5 grams or 2 grams a day. The RDA for vitamin C is around 100. That's in the United States. I don't know what it is over in your country. About 100 milligrams, 1/10 of a gram of vitamin C. And most people aren't even getting that.
That doesn't surprise me at all. And Jeanette, interestingly, you may have realised that Jeanette had surgery on her foot recently, and she was saying her surgeon strongly recommended smashing vitamin C to assist with her reconnection of bones and pins.
Topically? On top of the skin?
Yeah,
or
smashing it up and taking it. So she,
orally. Orally?
I would imagine.
Orally.
Jeanette?
Why would she take it? Why would they need to crush it up? You can use Beyond Tangy Tangerine. It's already crushed up for you.
No, I've been taking mountains of the stuff. So he said, drink as much as you can get into you.
Is that Michelle Graham?
No, it's Jeanette, and I can't find it to unmute her to bring her up. Where are you, Jeanette? Oh, you haven't got the camera on. That's why. Oh, there you are.
I don't see that.
So
he said to take it. Why did he tell you to crush it up?
No, not crush it. Smash it. Take lots of it.
Oh, smash it. Okay, gotcha.
Oh, okay.
Okay, gotcha. That's your fancy Australian way of saying just take a whole bunch of it.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I thought you meant crush it up.
But this is a reconstruction with my metatarsal construction. With
you have a very, very, very smart surgeon.
He's fantastic. Yeah.
Yes, you have a very smart surgeon. That's exactly what you want to do. When you're, and even before your surgery, for people going into surgery, take your vitamin C before you go surgery and then after. But your surgeon is right on. Tell him I said right on. Take some other stuff too. Get on the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack, collagen peptides, glucogel caps, all these, Fucoid Z.
I'm doing everything.
Everything. And you look great. You look awesome.
Yeah, throw the lot at it.
Thank you.
All right.
That's the way to go.
What did you have? What kind of surgery?
I had a fusion of my 3 metatarsal bones in my right foot.
Are you okay? Can you walk?
My metatarsal bones and my right foot.
Can you walk okay?
Not yet. Weight bearing begins next week. So
okay.
I had a fall
get on that healthy
2.5 years ago.
Are you doing longevity?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, get on the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack. There's a bunch you could do. You're gonna feel fine. Your surgeon's gonna say, "What the heck are you doing?" That's what happens when patients who are doing longevity go into surgery, and after surgery, the surgeons all say, "What are you doing? How are you getting like this?" The most important times to supplement are number one, and this is not in order. These are all the most important times to supplement. When you're exercising a lot, when you're pregnant, and when you are recovering from surgery. Those are the most important times to supplement. So if you got anybody out there who's going to get pregnant or who is pregnant, number one. If you're out there in the gym, if you're working out, number two, not in that order. And then if you're going into surgery, going out of or as you're coming out of surgery, that's the most important time to supplement. Your recovery begins, your healing begins when they put the knife in you, when they scalpel you. As soon as they scalpel you, your healing begins. So if you have lots of vitamin C present, lots of B complex, lots of minerals, lots of nutrients present, the healing process can begin quickly. And so load up a couple weeks, a month before, and then continue after. Chicken soup too. Don't forget the chicken soup.
Yep.
It's interesting you say that, because the number of people that I've been trying to help who, I'll wait till I've had the surgery before I do it. Yeah. And I'm going,
they're missing an opportunity.
You
want to start the healing process. As soon as that scalpel goes in, you want the body to start the healing process. That's when it's starting to heal. Instantly. Isn't that cool? As soon as an injury occurs, boom, the healing chemistry kicks in as soon as the injury occurs. And so if you're depleted, which most people are, then you're missing time. You're missing a golden opportunity to heal at an accelerated pace.
Yeah. No, I have now.
I have to go.
Okay. Well, quickly, Karen has a question. Quick. So, Karen,
be mad at me. AJ's gonna be mad.
Devin, where are they? It's about vitamin D.
Here I am. Just one of my distributors asked me, vitamin B6, what is...
Yeah, well, that's a little bit... Yeah. They want to know if it's a problem. It's not a problem. Yeah. No, it's not a problem. You have to take huge amounts of B6, and nobody's taking 500,000 milligrams of B6. There are some B6 products that are just B6 because they were using it for carpal tunnel syndrome, and that's a little much. But if you're taking B6 like Biontang, Tangerine, or the way most people take B6, that's not an issue. It's when you take ridiculous amounts of it, and most people are not taking that much.
Yeah, and as a plant anyway, so yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
and it's in the BTT that you're talking about as well.
Yeah, it's not anywhere near that much in the BTT to cause
There
Oh.
wasn't too much in the,
Okay.
in the
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
no,
well, look, I apologise if I've missed anyone. Ben said
I have to go. I got to
he
say
has
bye.
to go. So as we ask you all nicely here in Bronie's world, just stay safe, stay
Everybody
informed,
wave.
powered,
Bye, everybody.
and do not live in fear, my friends. And when you're
Bye.
taking care of your health, supplementing correctly, and looking after your connective tissues, then you too will be powerful, beautiful, brilliant, and most definitely very brave. You most definitely will be with connective tissue. God bless you all. Catch you again tomorrow here in Bronie's world. And thank you everyone for coming.
Outstanding, Brent.